Hello, Happy New Year and welcome to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast number 44. Yes, at last I've been able to get off my sickbed and get the first podcast of the new year out to you all. You may hear in my voice that I'm still recovering a little, but I'm much better than I have been, and my thanks to those of you who've wished me well. In this week's show, a change to the advertised schedule. We'll be reviewing the Christmas special, The Time of the Doctor.
Kidneys! I've got new kidneys! I don't like the colour.
Of your kidneys? What's happening?
What problem are catching? Oh!
It's a what?
Stay calm. Just one question. Do you happen to know how to fly this thing?
Well, you didn't honestly think I would miss the review of the Christmas special, did you? Be assured that the promised back-to-back look at the Silence and the Weeping Angels will follow in the next couple of weeks. But for now, sit back and enjoy your feedback on it, what the papers thought about it, and my own spoiler-filled reviews on The Time of the Doctor.
Come here, you scrumptious little beauty. A box?
Doctor, what is it?
I've got mail.
First to feedback was Scott Adam Julian, who said, "I thought the episode was fantastic. When 11 was old, it really showed what he should look like as the aged Time Lord he is. He's been around a bit, and Matt really portrayed that accurately. All in all, I rate the episode 9 out of 10, and the best Christmas episode for a while." Thanks for that, Scott, and interesting that you refer to Matt Smith's Doctor as 11, given the regeneration explanation that we're given in this story. And also the age thing is something that I'll address later in the show too. Thanks for your views. Next to tell us what they thought was Andrew Marmot. He commented, "OK Theta, here's my thoughts. Like the previous regeneration episode, the terribly drawn out End of Time parts 1 and 2, there was a certain level of melancholy that permeated the episode. Even if the Doctor was unaware that the clock was about to strike 12, the writing and performances certainly reflected what was coming. Following 3 rather joyous Christmas episodes, this was always going to be a challenge, and while it was in no way bad, it just felt sombre in comparison. All of that having been said, Matt Smith as the aged Doctor was a joy, and seeing all of those 11th plot threads tied up was nice. I especially liked the twist with the Silence. But although the regeneration limit issue was resolved, that felt a little contrived. And that's a good point, Andrew, and as I mentioned a moment ago, that's something I'll come back to later in the podcast. Andrew goes on, "I thought the regeneration scene was once again fantastic, absolutely fantastic, and the writing allowed the actor to sum up his feelings on leaving the role. The different style of regeneration leads to a change of thought that things will be different, and the arrival of the sublime Peter Capaldi leaves me excited for season 8, and a complete season without a split at that." Thanks again for your thoughts, Andrew. There's a couple of things in there that I want to come back to when I get to my own review of the story. But for now, that's all the feedback we have for this week.
You're talking nonsense, my boy.
Press reaction isn't something I've addressed before on this show, but thought it would be worth it to take a look at what was being said all over the world about our favourite show. So here goes with Robert Smith of the New Zealand Herald. "The most powerful moments in The Time of the Doctor didn't involve a standoff against intergalactic bullies and mad despots. They involved the Doctor reflecting on his time and slowly giving in to the ravages of age. In this vein, Smith managed to wring genuine emotion out of his final on-screen appearance. but also nailed the quieter moments. The shutdown of a disembodied cyberhead is also the loss of a trusted friend. It's a celebration of the recent past, and a dedication to the 11th Doctor and his time in the TARDIS. Time marches on for everybody, even Doctor Who, and everything eventually ends. While there's comfort in the fact that the story goes on, the 11th Doctor's time is over. It might have been silly sometimes, and the time travel shenanigans often got very complicated, but it was another fine chapter in the lives and times of Doctor Who. The next one is about to begin, but there's plenty of fun and emotion in the 11th chapter that is well worth celebrating. Robert Lloyd of the Los Angeles Times wrote this: "Even though the date of Smith's leaving and the identity of his successor Peter Capaldi had been known for some time, watching the episode knowing it was Smith's last kept at least one American viewer anxious and sad, with a finger on the pause button for when things got too heavy. Possibly there are still viewers, avid viewers even, who have never quite cottoned to him. Tennant continues to cast a long shadow. But I've loved his work. Elegant and heartfelt, authoritative and playful, swashbuckling and intimate, alien and familiar. Smith's acting has accommodated and, as it were, humanised every oddball, paradoxical, high-concept, low-humour passage Moffat has thrown at him." Here in the UK, reaction was thus. Tim Martin of broadsheet newspaper The Telegraph reported this: "Smith has been so good as the ageless, sinister, childlike, lovable alien that it was almost a shame to see that expressive Easter Island head caked in makeup for the middle section of this episode, while the swelling strings and Shakespearean speechifying of the final quarter hour seemed comically at odds with the intricate lunacy that animates his best performances. But there were some genuinely funny gags. Peter Capaldi looks promisingly demented in the role. Ola Brady was truly superb as a sexy spacefaring nun, and the whole thing went off with as much of a bang for Smith as it could possibly have done. However, I remain confused on one plot point. If the return of the Time Lords would have started a war, why does no one bat an eyelid when the Doctor slaughters a planet full of Daleks with golden energy? But no doubt that, like so much else, has already been pitchforked laughingly into later. And finally, for our press review, John Cooper of The Mirror, which, for those that don't know, is one of the tabloid newspapers here in the UK, commonly referred to as one of the red tops, along with The Sun and The Star. He wrote this about the special: "Easily the highlight of this year's Christmas viewing. The Time of the Doctor not only gave Matt Smith a great send-off, but also gave viewers a careful, concise, emotional hour of top-quality entertainment. And, as is typical for Who, renewal and regeneration are only the start of a brand new adventure, and from his brief introduction..."
Kidneys! I've got new kidneys! I don't like the colour.
Off your kidneys. What's happening?
What problem the catching? Oh!
It's a what?
Stay calm. Just one question.
Peter Capaldi looks like a fine successor to take on the world's favourite TV hero, and into a different and equally exciting direction. And that's the end of our press review, with many thanks to the Doctor Who news page that you can find at www.doctorwhonews.net for all your Doctor Who news. And no, I'm not on commission for them, I just thought it was fair that I credited them for the press reaction part of the show, as that's where I got it all from. So we've heard what you thought about it, and we've heard what the press thought about it. But what did I think of Time of the Doctor? Well, a good friend of mine summed it up exactly for me when I asked him what he thought. His words? Well, it wasn't bad considering it was a Stephen Moffat episode. I've been wondering how to open when considering my review for this podcast, but Barry summed it right up for me. Overall, this was a reasonable episode and not unenjoyable. However, for me, there were far too many Moffatisms in it that I want to explore and throw out there for your thoughts and feedback. So where to begin? And by the way, these are in no particular order. The first thing that I found irritating was the Doctor's ageing. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but in the opener to Season 6, The Impossible Astronaut, are we not told that the Doctor is now 1103 years old? Some nearly 200 years older than when he had last seen the trio he was then with. Yet there were no visible signs of ageing there for the naked eye to see. But in Time of the Doctor, we see the Doctor visibly ageing beyond recognition in only 300 years. How does that work? In my view, it doesn't work. While no one can complain about Smith's ability to play an old man, this physical ageing of the Doctor's body simply doesn't make sense. The next thing I found hard to swallow was the regeneration limit explanation. Now, those of you who follow my comments on Facebook regularly will know how I feel about this. For me, David Tennant's Stolen Earth Journey's End experience was not a regeneration. Indeed, Tennant himself says that he uses the regeneration energy to heal himself, then siphons off, quote, the rest of the energy, unquote, into the hand. So there was no regeneration there. Indeed, the only thing of note to discuss there was the fact that on that occasion the Doctor was able to control whether or not he did regenerate, but that's a discussion for another podcast. One thing I've never made any secret of since its inception is my loathing for the Paternoster gang. For me, Vastra and Strax are a cynical move from Stephen Moffat to make both the Silurians and the Sontarans look stupid. Interestingly, I was reading on the Doctor Who TV website that you can find on www.doctorwhotv.co.uk that for one of their New Year resolutions for Doctor Who, someone needs to write a story that puts the Sontarans back on the map as the aggressive, warmongering clone race that they are. And the same is definitely true of the Silurians after what we've seen of them in the new era of the show. And now here in the Christmas special, we see Moffat taking the out of the Cybermen. Handles is a sorry, pathetic sight that the Doctor has supposedly picked up in a market somewhere. We continually see the Doctor treating Handles like a rag doll right up to its bitter end, when for some reason he decides that a comfortable end would be best. I'm sorry, not for me, Handles. And once again we're left needing something proper, seriously Cyberman to return the reputation of these long-standing Silver Menaces. Almost my last nag for Time of the Doctor is the whole naked thing. For me, there was nothing in the plot driving this whole issue. It was there for cheap laughs, and for me it didn't even get that. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a prude in any way, but if you're going to have that kind of thing in a story, at least have something in the plot to drive it. In Time of the Doctor, there was absolutely no reason relating to the plot for any of the nude scenes or anything relating to them. One last thing, though, before I conclude. When I watched this story the second time round, I noticed that Clara, when seeing the silence for the second time, says something like, "Hang on a moment, I saw you, then I forgot you. How does that work?" Now again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but without marking her skin, and we've no evidence to suggest that Clara has ever been advised to do that, how would Clara have remembered seeing the silence in the first place if she then forgot it? So in conclusion, as you can probably tell, for me this wasn't the best Christmas special I've ever seen. Yet despite all the pot shots I've taken at it, and I stand by every one of them, it was well worth the wait for the final minute to get our first proper glimpse of Peter Capaldi as the Doctor. When I saw that for the second time, there was something inside me that made me feel suddenly very uncertain about Capaldi in the role. I'm not sure what I really expected from this very short screen outing, but it definitely wasn't what we got. Then someone on Facebook said something that completely restored my faith in the man to play the part brilliantly. They said, "Just look at those wild Tom Baker eyes." And immediately when I looked back at those closing moments, I saw the Doctor.
Kidneys! How can you kidneys? I don't like the colour.
Off your kidneys. What's happening?
We're probably catching. Oh!
It's a what?
Stay calm. Just one question. Do you happen to know how to fly this thing?
And that's all we have time for this week. Once again, I'm sorry for the delay in getting 2014's first podcast out there, but sometimes you have to put your health first, and over the last week or so, that's exactly what I've been doing. Hopefully, as we get back to normal in the coming weeks, I'll also be getting my voice back. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, the promised back-to-back look at fan-favourite New Era villains, the Weeping Angels and the Silence. And in future podcasts, we'll be looking at characters such as Susan, Stephen and Polly, all from the early days of the classic series, as well as Dr. Evelyn Smythe, Hex and Erimem from the Big Finish audio adventures. And of course we'll be reviewing more Big Finish stories and concluding our reviews of the Destiny of the Doctor's 50th anniversary series of audios as well. So with so much to look forward to on Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast throughout 2014, may I once again wish you all a very happy and blessed new year, and I look forward to hearing from you all with your thoughts on the show. Don't forget you can post your comments on Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast on Facebook, or you can email me on respectthething@outlook.com. That's respectthethe thing@outlook.com. If you would like to leave me some audio feedback, that would be brilliant, but please do try and keep it under 2 minutes long. So until next week...
Well, goodbye, my boy. You did quite well. Quite well. It's reassuring to know that my future is in safe hands.
Thank you for listening to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all copyright and property of the BBC, and no infringement is intended.